Lo-Fi Horror Guys Growing on You Live, Season 12, is brought to you by Error 4444. Error 4444 is a film distribution label based in the US that is dedicated to restoring and releasing cult action, horror, sci-fi, and exploitation films on Blu-ray from across Asia, which is absolutely sick. I am so excited for these releases and for this company. They strive to release hidden gems that are either out of print or have never had the treatment of, the Blu-ray, the DVD treatment in the US, and giving these films the collector's editions that physical media fans of world genre cinema deserve. So cool. I love it. Their first ever Blu-ray release, Anatomia Extinction, directed by Tokyo Gore Police director Yoshihiro Nishimura, is now available on their site exclusively at error4444.bigcartel.com. That is error4444.bigcartel.com. It's limited to 1,000 copies, and they have less than 25% of their stock remaining. So they're dwindling, and they're super limited. Horror collectors like myself eat this stuff up. Go and check them out right now. I have my copy pre-ordered, and I completely support these guys. I'm so happy to be working with them and them helping me out this season. This season is This Is Hell month. So excited. Really, really cool guests. Thank you very much for stopping by. Enjoy the episode. 3, 2, 1. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, the Lo-Fi Horror Guy. Welcome to another episode of the Lo-Fi Horror Guys Growing on You Live. Today, we're going to be continuing This Is Hell month and having on my dude, Rick Jimenez. I am so excited for this. This is going to be sick. We're going to be digging into all things writing, as far as This Is Hell, digging into a little bit of personal interests, all sorts of different fun stuff. So this is going to be sick. Let's see. Rick, what is going on, man?
What's up, man?
Dude,
so I've never used these headphones as a microphone before, so I don't know if I'm doing it right. So you let me know how you hear everything.
It sounds it sounds just fine, man. Perfect.
Okay, cool. I feel like I'm really close.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. Nice. Look, first off, man, let me say thank you very much for taking the time today. This has been so sick and a cool opportunity as far as having you guys and honestly, I mean, This Is Hell has been a big band for my interests, hardcore metal wise, and so this has been sick, and I appreciate your time today. So thank you, man.
Oh, for sure, man. I'm surprised anybody wants to hear from any of us.
It's so weird because I guess I just never followed along different forums or different things online, but up until doing interviews and listening to different, researching you guys and hearing things, I'm like, what the fuck, man? If I would have ever heard any of that shit, people saying different things, I'd have had something to say. Cause I'm just like, come on, man, that's fucking whack. I'm not trying to hear that shit, with some of the bands and some of the things that's going on out there and some of the trends over the years. Fuck that.
Well, hey man, I'm ready to do it. I'll set everything straight, or at least make up my own part.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So basically here, we're kind of straying a little bit from my normal template, if you will, and kind of digging into all things This Is Hell. Initially, we're going to do a couple of things, from your personal interest here. But yeah, if you're all cozy and you're ready, man, we're going to dig right in here.
No, I'm
Bam!
ready.
You got. Nice. All right. Let me ask you first off, before we dig into music and different things, your interest in wrestling. All right, the WWF, the WCW, where did that all start?
I mean, the age I am, it was just always around. I was, 4 when Hulkamania started. So, I mean, it was everywhere. So even if I wasn't super into wrestling when I was 84, 85, 86, 87 around WrestleMania 3, I watched WrestleMania 3 at my aunt and uncle's house. And all I knew about wrestling at that point for the most part was the cartoon. Do you remember Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling connection, the cartoon?
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
So I would watch that, and every so often I would catch, some other wrestling. I'm already going, dude, I'm going to ramble way, way too much. I'm incapable of telling short stories. It's one of the most, one of my worst qualities. But so I always knew wrestling was around. I always had friends that liked wrestling. what it was that really finally grabbed me and like made me feel like, oh, this is what you're gonna do for the rest of your life. Just like sit and watch this shit. Was the Ultimate Warrior. I mean,
Oh yes, dude, totally.
looking back now, he was not the antithesis of Hulk Hogan. But when I was 8, 88, 89, 89 especially, Hulk Hogan seemed like for the old people and kind of like the dorks. And I'm not saying anything bad about, I loved Hulk Hogan all through my childhood and adulthood. But then Ultimate Warrior, it's like, oh, this guy also listens to Metallica. So, of course, this is going to be my guy. Like, Hogan was intense, but Hogan didn't run. Hogan didn't shake the ropes. Hogan wasn't throwing temper tantrums in the ring like I did throughout my entire life outside of the ring. So Ultimate Warrior was like everything about that guy. I was like, oh, I need to actually like really pay attention because this is sick. And that was the second Intercontinental title reign for Ultimate Warrior. So from like the summer of '89 leading up to WrestleMania 6, which was April 1st, 90, was like my indoctrination into this is all you care about aside, dude, there's wrestling, there's metal, and there's like Spider-Man. Like that's all I've cared about. It shaped so much of me, that I'd always loved, like I said, I like comic books and cartoons and stuff like that. I was big into baseball as a kid. There's something you didn't ask about, but like hard rock and heavy metal. But once I found wrestling, I understood like how storytelling is supposed to be done. And I mean, I'm not saying this is the truth, but my truth is that there's no better way to tell a story than professional wrestling. And I still stand by that now. Not to mention, like I'm a small human as it is now, but in 1989, 1990, but I weighed, I can remember like the back of my like little league baseball card. I think I weighed like 46 pounds and I was like
Okay.
3 foot. So, I mean, I'm this like little shitty, poor idiot. And I see somebody like the Ultimate Warrior and it's like, I always had that attitude, but I just have nothing to back it up. But I was like, oh, so there's so many things that drew me in. But I mean, that was the thing that really hooked me. And then, I decided I'm going to pay, more attention to this than like school and anything else aside from like playing drums with anything I could pick up in my life and, making cardboard guitars and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. If you could, let's say hypothetically you're writing a new album, you're writing something, and you could name a track after your favorite wrestler's ending move. What would this song be called?
Oh, that's so hard because there's so many. You ever see that skit with Chris Jericho when he's like, Dean Malenko is the man of 1,001 holes. I'm the man of 1,004 holes. And he's just reading off all this nonsense. I could probably list 1,075 holes. So all the holes that a song can be named after. I mean, without going like too like stupid obscure to be like, hey, look at my stupid brain. This is what I paid attention to my entire life. For a little while in 1990, Sid Vicious, he was always doing the power bomb, but he was doing the human airplane also, which was he would put the guy up in the power bomb position on his shoulder, but then also lift him up with one arm. So it's like half razor's edge, half power bomb position. And he would spin his whole body, and then he would just throw the dude, and the dude would also spin, and then, smash.
Sick.
So
very good choice. That's rad.
Yeah, maybe the human airplane. I mean, that's like a shitty song title, but I mean, Sid Vicious.
It could be sick. You could go a lot of different ways with that too. As far as even like politically or like war. A bomb dropping and fucking parts flying everywhere. That's sick. Actually, I dig that.
Dude, I've spent so much. There's so many songs that I've written that are either blatantly or like not so blatantly about wrestling that it would probably like bum some people out if they like really knew, like, oh my God, like 6 of these 8 songs on this record are about wrestling.
That rules. That's kind of where I was going to dig into, and that's why I'm already, I'm starting out asking about wrestling, just because some of the questions kind of go into that a little bit here. But my last thing I did want to ask about is your favorite wrestler's entrance music. Who would you say of all time? What was your favorite entrance?
Well, it would be Ultimate Warrior, but I won't stick with that because, I just spent like an hour talking about the Ultimate Warrior. Okay, you know what? Big Van Vader's first entrance theme, which
Sweet.
I essentially stole a riff from and put it in the song Decimation Treaty on the Extinction A.D. album Decimation Treaty.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like
okay.
an 8 or a 7.5 minute instrumental.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna kind of lift this riff. I changed it a little bit, but like, fucking barely. But he used this song for like 4 months in 1990, so nobody knows and nobody gives a shit anyway. But man, it's so sick. And the crazy thing about that, more stuff nobody cares about. There's like an edited version and then like an extended version, and the extended version, half of it is Big Van Vader's 1990 entrance theme. And the other half is me and Mark Callis's 1990 entrance theme. Me and Mark Callis was The Undertaker before he was The Undertaker.
Yeah.
Yeah. 1989 through 1991 WCW entrance music is like so underrated. WWE now doesn't have the rights to most of it, so it won't show up on the network. Or fucking Peacock, which I won't go on a rant about how that shit sucks. But man, it's just like studio musicians sat down and like wrote this early 90s thrash influenced metal and put it in a library, and WCW wound up with it.
Damn. I guess I'd have to look back and check out some of that stuff, because I know I still have some old VHS tapes and shit, and especially older WCW wasn't really ever my thing. It was always WWF and Raw is War and different shit
Where
like that.
are you from?
Michigan.
Oh, okay. And I hope this isn't rude. How old are you?
33.
Oh, all right. So you were around during WCW a little bit, at least.
Yeah.
But
yeah. And it was something too, like my brothers were older than I was, and so they had always collected different VHS tapes and had different things that they would record and shit. And so I'd watch, things that were even a little bit before my time, but just out of the appreciation of, getting to see more and, seeing Razor Ramon wrestling 1, 2, 3 Kid and shit like that, So I was like, oh, I loved all that stuff. But as far as the older WCW, I'd have to check into that a little bit more.
Yeah, just like about 2 years before that Razor Ramon 1, 2, 3 Kid match, WCW music was so sick. I wonder who wrote that shit, because it's cool stuff. But
yeah, that'd be sweet. Okay.
I won't talk too much about that. I won't talk too much about it because you'll wind up realizing I lifted like more and more riffs from 1990, 1991 WCW entrance themes.
Sweet, nice. Okay. You were mentioning old Big Man Vader. Was he the cat who came out and did the surprise Shockmaster? That's kind of re-dawning right now.
No, that was a different guy. That guy was Fred Ottman, who was also Tugboat and Typhoon.
Oh, Tugboat. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's funny. I just saw something a little while back. I follow a couple of wrestling pages, and they were mentioning something about Shockmaster. I'm like, holy fuck! Like, how is that not like resurfaced? And now I don't know. I think it's not Beyond the Mat. What's the program going right now that it's like the behind the scenes? They did Chris Benoit.
Oh, Dark Side of the Ring.
Yeah. That's a wicked ass show too. I know, and obviously you talk about it a lot on your podcast as well too. But yeah, I was like, man, I'd love to see them fucking do something on that Shockmaster, because that was one of my favorite moments ever in wrestling.
You know what, man? And he embraces it now. So that guy makes more money doing signings and all that shit by being the Shockmaster who fell down, as opposed to being Typhoon, who was a 2-time tag team champion, Tugboat, who was like Hulk Hogan's, good friend for a little while.
Holy shit.
I mean, he embraces it, and good for him, because it's like entertainment and it's TV and it's just life, you know.
Yeah.
I try not like why bother taking everything too seriously? Take some things too seriously, but you know, what are you gonna do?
Right.
You tripped over a fucking board and your glittery stormtrooper hat fell off. Make $100 from it in 2021.
Oh God, that's fucking amazing. I had no idea that this was like a popular thing. I would love to have a signature from the dude. I'm gonna have to look into that because God,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
missing out. Shit. All right, so digging into a little bit as far as your musical background. What was, maybe some albums or some bands growing up that drew your attention personally? May it be things that your parents were listening to, maybe friends.
I mean, just like every other failed musician, like, oh, I grew up around music. You know, my parents always, well, my mom always had music playing. So, I mean, I knew the Beatles, the White Album, since I was, birthed. But my first favorite album was Def Leppard Pyromania. It was also the
Oh yeah,
first
okay.
cassette I ever bought on my own. Dude, you know what's crazy? I talked to, some of my friends, Travis, the most about this. He's like, yo, you have the memory of like a fucking alien because I remember like dumb shit. Like I remember my first I remember my first birthday. But I remember
Oh my God.
1983 watching Def Leppard the photograph no Rock of Ages video. And I have like a little cardboard guitar and I'm like dancing in front of the fucking TV. And then I stopped and I started stressing out. Dude, I'm 3 years old. I'm stressing out thinking, do I really like this song or do I just think the video is cool?
Damn, no shit.
I know, it's stupid, right? Anyway, so that was my first favorite album. That was the first cassette I ever bought with my own money. Poison, Look What the Cat Dragged In. That was
Okay.
that was the first 12-inch vinyl I ever bought and owned. I got that in '86. But
That's
dude,
insane. I mean, yeah, the memory's insane, man.
yeah, Def Leppard and Guns N' Roses were like my favorite bands ever until I saw the Metallica One video. And same thing, I remember this like clear as day. I was sleeping over my cousin's house. He was like a year or two older than I am. And we're up late. We're watching MTV. We were probably watching Headbangers Ball and just didn't know that we were. And the One video came on, and we were like, no, just we're watching MTV. And then we just had that same story that everybody tells the first time they saw the One video. We're just watching it, and then it just turns into, instead of like, oh, this is like cool and metal, it was like, and we're like enthralled. And then like after the video was over, I remember we looked at each other, we're like, what did we just watch? So then he got Injustice for All.
All right, there we go. I don't know if
Dude,
if that
that's
was my
my fault.
connection.
No, my internet sucks here.
Oh, okay, all right.
Sorry about that,
I was
man.
trying to see if it was a Wi-Fi connection or something. I just needed to try and turn that off. But okay, yeah. I mean, if anything, if it starts fucking up, we'll just go and restart it here. That's not a problem, man.
All right, I'm sorry. So, like I was saying, I found Metallica. Time Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Def Leppard, Poison. It was kind of all the same to me. In that point, I was also listening to like a lot of MTV rap at that point. Like,
Okay.
well, I did and still do love NWA, but like, I loved like LL Cool J. And I even, that first DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, like tape before, before Will Smith was Will Smith. Like, I loved that shit. But,
Okay.
it's not like I ever stopped loving that shit either. But little by little, it's like, I always thought I could play drums. I always thought I could play guitar, even though I never had a real guitar or had drums or anything. But the lead up to the Black Album coming out was when I realized, like, yeah, like Metallica might be like kind of my favorite band more than Def Leppard, but like I don't really know. And then once the Black Album came out, it was like, All right, you know what? Do you hear that vacuum?
I do.
Yeah, that's that's my tenant upstairs vacuuming. Um,
Not a problem.
so
It's all good.
you know, and this is like one of many reasons, especially because like I'm older than most people that I hang out with or know, for the most part. Um, this is what makes me so fucking mad about people who are like, well, I like the first four Metallica albums and not the Black Album. It's like, first off, you're fucking stupid. Second, you're a liar. Like, third, you posed so hard because I know I liked Metallica before the Black Album. And once the Black Album came out, that was what really pushed me and made me realize, like, Metallica is my favorite band ever. You know,
Oh
and
shit!
oh, you
Wow.
know what? Now there's instead of all wrestling posters all over my room, it's like half wrestling and half Metallica. And then from there, because Metallica had more of a foot in metal, obviously, than Def Leppard or Guns N' Roses. I found out so many other bands through Metallica, and I would say between like 75 and 90% of people my age and even like a few years older and many years younger than me, they have the same fucking way of getting into metal, you know? So I want to physically fight people when they like want to shit talk the Black Album.
That is funny. Oh my god! And it's a funny take too. I mean, as far as a lot of people you hear with Metallica, where they're like, "Oh, the Black Album's where they completely lose me," But that I mean, that's sick. In order to hear that, I mean, because let's see here.
All right.
There we go. You back?
Did I freeze on you?
Yeah.
Okay. We should be good now.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Cool. No, I was just saying, as far as I mean, it's cool, hearing, because that's kind of the thing with Metallica, where there's that drawing line of just the Black Album. But I mean, that was an album that I grew up with too, as far as along with the older stuff. I grew up with that, and like tracks like "Holier Than Thou" and different. I mean, that record's sick. Fuck
Yeah.
that. I
Yeah.
still love it. So you playing drums in Subterfuge? What was the first instrument? Did you get a guitar first? Did you get drums? Where was your introduction as far as your first instrument?
As far as like real instruments, because dude, like I would grab anything that looked like drumsticks and like play on a bed, and then I had like a patterned fucking comforter on my bed with like all the different like baseball logos on it. So I'd be like, all right, well, like the Yankees logo is the hi hat, the Cubs logo is a snare, yada yada, and I would like teach myself how to play drums like that, even though there's like no sound, but it's kind of like thought I knew already.
Uh-huh.
But obviously, I always wanted to play guitar. Also, I'd always like get like pieces of cardboard and like draw guitars and cut them out and play. But the first real instrument I ever got was a guitar, and
Okay.
I took lessons for um, like 6 months or something.
Mm.
And then it got to the point where I was like, I don't need lessons anymore. Like I could do this on my own, which wrong. So I just like would play and try to teach myself, but I was never very good at teaching myself because, like I said, I was 12, and I had 6 months of lessons. I knew how to do some open chords, but even in that time of lessons, no one ever told me what a bar chord was. So it wasn't until I finally was like, fuck it, I'm gonna get an electric guitar. You figure out a way when you're a kid to save some money, and you're like, hey, I have like a fucking birthday coming up or some shit. So I got this like beat electric guitar, and I was like, all right, well now I'm just doing the same shit I was doing on the acoustic guitar, but it's like a little like louder and more obnoxious.
Mm.
So my mom was like, hey, I'll bring you to this guy and we'll do lessons just for a little bit and see if you like it. Now that you have an electric guitar, and at that point I was like 2 years older or something. So I took lessons again for a couple of months, but at that point I would like meet up with friends and play guitar also, and learn how to like read music a little bit. So then at that point, like your ear gets a little more focused, and like, oh, I could write songs, I could actually play. So I played guitar for shit 4 years before I moved on to any other instrument.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then how did the drums come about then? As far as, was that just something where it kind of fell into place with that they needed a drummer, or how did that work out?
Yeah, I mean, my best friend John Moore, he played bass, and so we would hang out all the time, play guitar and bass, and we'd always try to like find other people to play music with, and everywhere where we lived, everyone was like a fucking idiot. So we convinced his brother to get a drum set. Like, yo, Christmas is coming up. All you want is a drum set. And he didn't want a fucking drum set. But he got that drum set.
Oh my God.
And like 2 weeks went by and he just was not interested at all. So John got in touch with one of his other friends who wound up, also becoming one of my best friends, Chris Mazzella, who also played guitar. He's like, yo, Chris, why don't you come over and play guitars with us? And, you and Rick will play guitar. I'll play bass. And, maybe his brother will play drums. So, Chris comes by and obviously his brother's not playing drums. So I'm like, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing, but like, I can play drums. I'd never done it before, but, I'll just sit down and do it. And then I wound up playing drums for 8 years.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Nice. And
that was it. I have no idea what I'm doing. I never really learned how to play drums properly, and I haven't done it in so long now. The last time I played drums, I think was 2010. So if I go and sit behind a drum set now, it sounds like when that idiot guitar player sits behind the drums because the drummer, got up. But I mean, I won't do it on our drummer's kit now because I wouldn't be caught dead sitting on his stool.
Okay. That's and it's funny because I have had different conversations with different different cats on here that are drummers, and that just that their role in a band. And I've had the conversation where I learned how to play by playing on my bed, and I've never heard anybody else say that, and it's fucking crazy because I always thought that was the wackest story ever. I'm like, I can't be telling this shit, but like literally, I play along with Alice in Chains and Metallica and Cold Chamber and all this shit. And I'm just like, man, one day all I had was sticks, and I just sat there and I'd be fucking beating on nothing. I'm like, so that's hilarious. That's funny hearing that, and then for you to actually kind of put that into fruition, that's sick.
I remember so many things. I remember the day I figured out that you could do like a da ga da da ga, but then like, oh, I could actually move my right hand more and go like da da ga da 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 ga. I was like, oh, so I know like 2 drum beats now, and I'm like 6. But it's funny. So now when I'm like recording demos and shit, like I'll program drums to play along with.
Okay.
And if I could have done that when I was younger, I probably would have been a better drummer, because I feel like if I sat down behind a drum set now, which I'm like planning on doing, dude, we're going to record a new Subterfuge record. The only thing we're really waiting on now is for me to dig up my drums from the cellar and set them up in my shed and like really learn how to play again. But like programming drums for like a demo or whatever, it's like, well, this would take me like 2 hours. And I would get back to where I was. Now, granted, I was never like good to begin with. I was, solid enough to, play in like a hardcore band. And I know I could still, play fast. So it's just a matter of like getting back into the groove of like, all right, this is how like a guitar player who thinks he could play drums plays drums, as opposed to, hey, guitar player, please stop making noise behind a drum kit.
Nice. All right, one other experience that I had to hit on that you and I have in common is what in your youth having a rap band. I heard about this on your podcast, Lube Ricky and the Rappers. Dude, please let's touch on this a second. How did this work out? Was this like a high school thing? You were doing talent shows?
No. This was elementary school.
Oh shit!
So,
okay.
Yeah, the last time like that even existed, I think, was like 5th grade. So that was like 3rd grade to 5th grade. And dude, you also have to understand, this was like 88 through 90. So like, I'm gonna have like a rap group plus, I'm fucking 8 through 10. Like having the rappers in it wasn't as like offensive and like and by offensive I mean like fucking cringy, corny as it as it sounds now. Plus, even if it is, like I said, we were fucking 8. But
Yeah.
whenever there was like any like reason that somebody could go up and like do a performance at school, I would like write some shit and then grab like 3 or 4 of my friends who were like, I guess, the rappers behind Rude Ricky, and we would just like do these songs. It wasn't like really, there was no music or anything. Like maybe one dude would like beatbox and then somebody would like make a couple of rhymes and then like at the end like, hey, let's all go into like a split. Like who the but I think the last time that we did like a performance, we got in we got in trouble because it was like the 4th grade and the 5th grade classes. So I guess that's like 4 different classes coming together. Got into like the gymnasium for like a big like the older kids in school get like this like special catered lunch or some shit, and there, you know, some people were telling jokes and do whatever. So I got up there with Rude Ricky and the Rappers, and I guess I didn't understand that this wasn't okay, and we just like dissed everybody with rhymes in our grade, and then afterwards the teacher is like, no more Rude Ricky and the Rappers. I'm like, what? It's like, this is like what you do in rap music. You make up rhymes about people you know. It's like, well, not in Smithtown, not in Branchbrook Elementary, you don't. So that was the end.
Sick. God, as soon as I heard that, man, I was like, oh, I have to fucking touch on that with him because this is literally, that was one of the first notes I had in my shit as far as like curating and writing this interview. Was I was like, Rude Ricky and the Rappers has to fucking make it. Like I have to touch it, man. God,
that's probably
great.
the most I've ever spoke about that in my life.
I love it. Well, I'm glad that it was here. Shit. So as far as kind of digging into This Is Hell, you know, with Subterfuge and the time that you were in the band, and then just kind of the different projects that were wrapping up in a sense, and This Is Hell coming about. What were some of the earlier things that you remember as far as conversations and stuff that you were writing for This Is Hell?
You know, This Is Hell was like such a, I guess like natural thing is the way to say it. You know, we were all in different bands. You know, Long Island Hardcore was like, in my opinion, like kicking ass at that time. There was so many cool bands and bands that just started to like tour from our sect of Long Island Hardcore and everything. I had stopped doing Subterfuge. John and I started a new band called Thieves and Assassins. Travis was in a band called Scraps and Heart Attacks. And then there was the Backup Plan, who is, in my opinion, the second best Long Island Hardcore band ever. They're doing their thing. And, you know, we were all friends aside from just hardcore also.
Right.
So it got to a point where, you know, everyone's band is doing their own thing. In my opinion, and I think this is kind of the reason why this all started. None of the bands were really pushing as hard as they wanted to. So the idea came up, like, we should get, and this is my memory. I don't know if I'm like misremembering or like filling in the blanks, but this is my memory of things. So at least the idea came up, we should get kind of like the movers and the shakers in each band together and just, you know, do a little project, still do our other bands, and just kind of record something, see what happens. So I remember the very first like concept of the band, I think was kind of that. I was like, yeah, you know, they're like, oh, we're going to meet at Jeff's house. I don't know if it was, I think it was Jeff who had asked me. Jeff is the first bass player of This Is Hell, sings in Anoint the Sick, sings in American Ice Age. So I went over to Jeff's house and I was playing drums. Jeff and Joe and Dan Brenner from Backup Plan were playing guitars and bass. And, you know, I don't know if Travis was even there that first day. And we were just like fucking around. And I'm almost positive that we wreck Your Life that day. which was the first song on the demo and everything.
Yep.
I was like, oh, this is like pretty cool. But dude, at that time there was like 8 million Long Island hardcore bands and 4 drummers. So I had done like first practices with bands so often, and it got to the point where I was like, hey, I'll play drums with any of my friends to help you start a band, and then once you find another drummer, like I'll bounce.
Okay.
But I wasn't playing drums anymore because I was just playing guitar and Thieves and Assassins at this time. So I was like, I'll fuck around and play. So I did that one. We did that one get together, and then I don't know how long it was, but to me, like nothing ever happened, and it just kind of escaped my brain. And then somebody asked, I don't remember if it was Travis or Jeff, someone's like, do you want to come over and play guitar? We were like jamming that song, and we jammed some other songs after backup plan practice with Dan Burke playing drums. So do you want to play guitar? I said, I'll fucking do anything. I don't give a shit. So I guess Dan Brenner wasn't feeling it or whatever the fuck. Or maybe this was when it was, hey, we want to potentially make this like a real deal band and go on tour and all this shit. But nothing that heavy was discussed with me that often, or that early, I should say. It was just kind of like, and Burke is a real drummer, and I, even at my best, I was never a real drummer. I had a stupid snare drum, and I played really fast, and that was it.
Okay.
So I came over and we jammed that first song, and I think another song that some of the dudes had written, and then we worked on another song, and it was just so fucking easy because it was like just friends bullshitting some hardcore. So we did that, and then Jeff was recording stuff all the time at that point too. And it was like, hey, let's record a demo and, make this a band and just kind of see what happens. Now, I know I'm missing some things in there, but that's my recollection of it. And then that was the initial lineup of This Is Hell. And, Travis is like, as far as, well, dude, the entire time This Is Hell was a band. And even now with Extinction A.D, he's like the go-getter, in a manner of speaking, anybody can sit there and write some good songs. I know that's not actually true. It's like harder to write some good songs, but it's easier to write good songs than it is to have the motivation and have the proper mindset to go for it and actually do something with it, as opposed to like, I wrote these cool songs. Wouldn't it be so great if we can go on tour? Everybody in the world has done that. But then to be like, all right, we're going to press these shirts. We're going to make these demos. I'm going to give them to this person, that person, that person. And we're going to book some shows and do all this stuff. Like, that was all Travis. And I think that was a load off of all the backup plan guys' shoulders, because they were always grinding in that way also. And all my bands, I had thought I was doing that, but I wasn't fucking doing it. Not compared to the way Travis was doing it. It was more like, oh, I had so much fun with my friends, and I feel like we're such a good band. Because, any band I'm going to waste my time with, in my mind, it's not the best band ever, but it has to be my favorite band at that point. And I always want my band members to think that. And as far as I was aware, my personal headspace, that's how all 4 of us always felt with Subterfuge. And we were always pushing it, but I didn't fucking know shit about dick. I didn't know that I didn't know anything back then. But even, 2004 and then 2005, and 6 and so on, like, Travis always knew how to do that shit. And he, excels at that. And I was like, dude, he could just do all that shit and then sing. And then, Jeff and Burke and I, we could write some cool shit and we'll be on our way. Like, that's sick. So we put out that first demo, and we were all on tour with our other bands at the time. And even though we were on tour with 3 different bands, on those tours throughout the summer and I guess the early fall of 2004, from my point of view, This Is Hell was catching more fire than any 3 of our other real bands.
Oh, wow.
Real bands. And I know you probably heard the same story over and over again from everybody else you spoke to. But from my point of view, it was really different because the band I was in at the time, those dudes were, I shouldn't even say those dudes. One dude in that band was so not psyched that a side band I was doing was like, catching a little bit of steam. The thing is, we all come from such nothing. A little bit of steam was like the fucking pot of gold in 2004.
Yeah. Okay.
So when it got to the point where Travis and the backup plan dudes that were also in This Is Hell were like, we're going to go on tour in October and November. Are you ready to do this? I was like, well, I have the tours planned with my other band. Not to mention John Moore, who's been my best friend since 1985 and was also in Subterfuge the whole time. We had started this new band to be a touring band. I was like, I'd like to do both, but I can't do both. I don't really know what to do. But, so the band we were doing at the time was called Thieves and Assassins. It was essentially supposed to take the vibe as far as like four close friends playing music that they love, just do a different band because only, two of the four of us were able to tour and start a new band, have that same vibe. So it was like John and I trying to make that work. The thing is that band never vibed like that. But I had that loyalty to John. I also had that loyalty to this new band that we started, like the project itself. So I was like, I can't do this first. This Is Hell tour. Sounds like a lot of fun. I'm sure it's going to be sick, but, I'd love to do it, but I can't do it. Even before that, one of the dudes in that other band said, yo, you can't do that band. You can't do two bands. Okay. If you're in this band, you're in this band. You can't do that other band. I was like, what the? I've never done one band at a time. I think the first 6 months that I did Subterfuge, that was the only time in my life up until that point. So that's from June of 1996 up until that conversation, which I believe was June of 2004. I had never been in just one band at a time. Being in one band is stupid. When you're like a dumbass little kid and all you have time to do is like obsess over hardcore and go to shows and hang out with your friends and, fuck around, I'm going to do 10 bands. So I was like, sorry guys. And I remember, they were bummed, which I understand because that's a shitty thing to do. Hey, you made this 4-song demo. It's like, to us at the time, like, oh, this is like really cool. We could do something with this. Travis booked a fucking 2-month tour on a goddamn demo. Who does that? Like, first off, insane. Travis, if you're in here, you're a fucking psychopath. But we were all psychopaths. That's all any of us wanted to do. So I didn't even do that first tour. They got Andrew Jones, who played bass in the backup plan, to play drums for that tour. Because Burke didn't go on the tour either. And they got somebody else to play guitar. And I remember the whole time I was doing this other tour with this other band. And I'm there with my best friend ever, John Moore. And we're both bummed out. I'm bummed out because me and him are trying to make that band work. But the fucking chemistry just was not there. And then I'm thinking like, oh, well, it sucks for John. It sucks for me because of that situation. But also like, well, I want to hang out with my other friends. I want to hang out with Jeff. I want to hang out with fucking Travis. And I want to go on tour for 2 months straight instead of doing, 2 tours that are like 2.5 weeks. And, it's not like the This Is Hell tour was this like fucking resounding success with thousands of people. But that shit never mattered to me. Even now, that shit doesn't matter. Do I want to play to a lot of people? Of course. It's more fun most of the time when there's a lot of people. But I just want to have fun with my friends, playing music, feeling like I'm doing something important to me. And if there's people there that feel like it's important too, radical.
Yeah.
And I did not even have that feeling on those other tours I was going on. So I was like, what the fuck am I doing? One of the last days of that second tour. So my old band did 2 tours during the same time. This Hell did one long one. We met up at home and played a show at home together. And watching This Is Hell play without me, knowing that I was going to play in my other band next. And I'm like, I don't want to hang out with those dudes anymore. I don't want to play these songs anymore. I was like, fuck. And during that set, Like I didn't think about it, but during that set, I made up my mind. I was like, I'm not doing this band anymore. And it was like, that's a shitty feeling, especially like for anybody. But for me, when there's nothing more important than playing my stupid guitar to some other idiots that want to hang out. That's the most important thing
Yeah.
in the entire world to me. And I'm doing it. And halfway through, I'm like, this sucks. I'm having no fun. I have no interest in anything that's going on here. So I just like, I tapped out. I played the rest of the show knowing I'm not fucking doing this again. So the next morning, we all hung out, my old band. And I'm like, hey guys, I'm really sorry. I'm not doing this band anymore. They're like, what? Really? This is your band? I was like, all right. And some of the, you know, I mean, what are you gonna do, man? You know, like when you're dating a chick for a year and a half, and like, you know, you have no fun fucking them, and you have no fun hanging out with them. What the fuck are you doing? You know,
what are you doing?
Might as well be blunt. I said, I don't feel like doing this anymore. I'm real sorry. And they knew John wasn't going to do it without me. They're like, well, what are you going to do? John's like, I'm moving to California. What are you going to do? Because he'd been thinking about it also. So once I said, dude, I'm so sorry. I want to do this, but I can't do this. He's like, yo, this sucks. I want to get the fuck out of here. So we're like, oh, perfect. So I left that, you know, band meeting, and I called Travis. I said, I don't remember if I called Travis or I called Jeff. Anyone who's listening, you know, choose and pretend like I'm talking to them. I said, hey, what's going on? They're like, oh, what are you doing? I was like, oh, I just had a meeting with the band. You know, I told them I quit the band. I'm not doing it anymore. And I had spoken to Jeff and Travis towards the end of the tour just because, like, we're fucking boys. And they had known that I was, like, not having it. And I knew with the lineup they were doing that tour with, they were not having it. I'm like, you know, we'll see what happens. So I call them, yo, I quit. They're like, oh, well, do you want to just rejoin this hell? I said, yeah, that's all the fuck I want to do. They're like, all right. And they're like, oh, yeah, by the way, Burke is back in too. I was like, oh, glorious. So then, you know, it was the original lineup again. So there was like a fucking 2-month tour where it was not a proper This Is Hell lineup. The people who filled in, especially, you know, Andrew Jones, who wound up being like a real member of the band later on, the fucking thank the Four Winds that they filled in because they saved the band over those 2 months. Yeah. What would have happened if Burke and I couldn't do that tour and they had no drummer and second guitar player? Like, This Hell might have like fucked off before they even started. So I know one of those dudes was like, you know what, he's not fucking, he still is bitter about that. I believe that, like, oh, I was in the band, I got kicked out, and Rick kicked me out. I don't fucking kick anybody out. It was my band just as much as everybody else's from day one, and I made a decision, and then I made a different decision. You know what's sick about life? Changing your fucking mind. Information changes, things change your mind, do what's sick. And you know what was sick? Meeting up with the guys in This Is Hell again, and then from that point on, man, we left for another tour the day after Christmas in 2004, and for the most part, didn't get home till June of 2013.
Oh shit! Wow, that's fucking. You know, and like the push and the drive as far as all the shows that you guys were doing. You know, and I mean, even, you know, you telling that story with like you not being directly involved with that first tour and whatnot. Like, I didn't even realize that. So I mean, that's sick. You know, like that's kind of why I am going along, you know, a little bit of the earlier days along with like through the albums too, just because of little things like that, you know. And I think it's an important thing too, mentioning as far as sometimes things, you know, end and it might be kind of a little bit of like a bitter fashion. But if you imagine, you know, if somebody's heart isn't fully into it and you continue through years and years, you know, you're not going to get the best product out of something, you know. And so sometimes, you know, something might be shitty and you might be pissed off, but in the long run, I think a lot of times, well, I can't say a lot of times, but, you know, at least in experiences of my own, you know, people kind of come back to it and they're like, you know what, it was a good situation. You know, I was pissed off at the time, but, you know, luckily it, you know, the things I got to do afterward, you know, were something worth a while too. So
Dude, for everybody involved in the entire long situation I just told you, it worked out great. In my opinion, it worked out great for the band that John and I started, Thieves and Assassins, that we quit. So when we left that meeting that morning, they're like, "Oh, we're just gonna break up." And then they're like, "You joined This Is Hell later that night?" I was like, "Well, joined? Yeah, yes." They're like, "Well, we're gonna keep doing the band." I said, "Dude, that is fucking awesome. You know what?
Yeah, it's
I
sick.
know that Dan Brenner would join the band playing guitar in my place because I had already spoken to him about joining the band prior." So Dan Brenner, who played in the backup plan, who was at the first This Is Hell practice, but didn't join This Is Hell, wound up joining Thieves and Assassins, as well as the fill-in guitar player for that first This Is Hell tour wound up joining Thieves and Assassins playing bass, taking John's spot. And that band played for years afterwards and put out, I think, a new demo, another full length, and like a 7-inch or two. And like I said, Andrew Jones wound up playing bass in a bunch of other bands, and I think even drums in a few bands. But then eventually, for Weight of the World, wound up joining This Is Hell and playing bass on that album. And man, I think it's because Jeff was first, and Jeff was like lyricist supreme. Jeff Tew is my favorite lyricist in all of lyrics. He was the first bass player in This Is Hell, and then Johnny, who was in Subterfuge and Thieves and Assassins, was the second bass player in This Is Hell. So when he joined, it was so sick to have my best friend there for like 2 years, and then he wrote a ton of lyrics. And then Andrew joined, and he did an album, but he wasn't in the band for that long, I think about a year and a half. And then Pete joined, and we did big tours with Pete. But that little period that Andrew was in the band, that period always gets looked over in This Is Hell's the history, just because it was a short amount of time and we didn't do like huge tours compared to the other tours we did. And so that's the reason why I use the word that I'm going to use right now. I believe Andrew Jones is the most underrated This Is Hell member that we've ever had, because he was, in my opinion, every second of being in This Is Hell with Andrew Jones was fucking hilarious. Even when Andrew was mad at something, and dude, I'm always mad at everything, and more times than not, I hate when people think it's funny when I'm mad. And when Andrew's mad, it's so fucking funny. But he rarely, gets like really mad. But and obviously, like on Weight of the World, he did an amazing job, and the Warbird 7-inch also. But so much fun. I feel like Andrew just gets overlooked in whenever we talk about the bands from Long Island. He was in the backup plan also, and in my opinion, not just his playing, but the bass sound on the backup plan records is so important. So man, Andrew Jones rocks.
Yeah, hell yeah. I think it was either Dan or Travis I was mentioning too. Like initially, this was kind of my idea, and these were like the first couple of people that I'd had this month. But I'm kind of slowly reaching out to different too, because it's cool through different things and maybe even some of the same questions, kind of collectively like getting a little bit of a rounded like history and just some of the fucking stories that are popping up too, because it's so cool. And I mean, as far as like I say, myself being a fan of the band for so long, and then having like this opportunity where it's like, hey, I can fucking holler at these dudes and like hear some of this shit that I never got to experience. Like I'm fucking there. I can't wait. What would you say off of like through the demo and the EP days? What would you say is your favorite song from those?
Jeez, I smashed my head into this wall. So between yesterday and today, I actually just listened to the whole This Is Hell discography. I think the demo is fine. I mean, it sounds like 5 children fucking around in a basement, which it was. But man, that EP, I just got so sick of that EP for a little while. And yesterday I listened to it. I was like, yo, this EP rules. I mean, like I said before, I will never say that any of my bands were the best band. But for me, the reason why I am in the bands I'm in is because I want them to at least be like, oh, well, this is like my favorite band. No, that's my favorite band. Like, I mean, I'm fucking wearing an Extinction A.D shirt right now. But
Sick move. Yeah.
um, oof. Ad Infinitum from the EP
Oh,
is
okay.
such a cool song. And you know what's interesting about that song is not even just then, but especially now. I'm so like, oh, I hate metalcore. Metalcore is so shitty. And listening to that song, it's a hardcore song, but man, that song is so metalcore. But I mean, who gives a fuck what the label is of it? I mean, that song rips. I remember the day we wrote that song. It was on that December 2004 to January 2005 tour. We were in Arizona, and we unloaded our gear from the van, brought it inside to wherever we were staying. Unless maybe we might have played it on, I guess, somebody else's gear, whatever the fuck. It doesn't matter. We wrote that song on tour. And I remember having to argue with one of the other members, like, you know, I don't really like writing music on tour. I was like, dude, we have the ball rolling. We need to go home. We need to record more songs. Let's fucking go. Let's write some music. Because that's all I've ever done is just write. I'm like, man, we're out for a month. I want to like play my guitar where it's not just on, you know, on stage, not the show. So one of the other dudes is like, well, I'm not going to be involved in this. So the rest of us got together and we wrote that song. And I remember being like, is this like is this too much? Going like, bum, 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 bum. And I don't remember who it was. I assume it was Dan Burke because I feel like, you know, the syncopated kick is like right up his alley. He was probably like, fuck it, do it. And we're in drop C sharp at that point. But man, that song is so cool to me. And there's like a little like a shitty little like notey lead. And I remember like, oh, I'm gonna put like an Iron Maiden harmony on this. And that was like the first, you know, that's like the first introduction of like metal that This Is Hell has.
Okay. Yeah, I never put that together, but yeah, totally. I can see that too. Thinking back to that track now, I mean, that does seem like that's one of the earlier efforts kind of into that push too. So yeah, that's funny. I never realized that.
Give me 1 second here. I need to charge my phone.
All right. Let's see here. Get my notes.
We're live, right? There we go.
Yep. All good. We'll get this shit out, you know, edit it out. You know what I'm saying? No big deal.
All right. Sorry about that.
No, not a problem. Not a problem. So as far as, you know, kind of moving into sundowning a little bit, and I know different people, you know, kind of bring up, you know, different things with labels and with, you know, just different little bullshit as far as if it would change your sound. But from what you recollect, as far as with sundowning, with that being your guys' first, you know, feature album, and then having a bigger label attached, was there a little bit of a stress added, you know, as far as if it was going to be something where, you know, you were going to have to push a little bit harder, or that, you know, what were kind of initial thoughts, you know, with that, as far as not having to change your sound by any means, but just, you know, as far as, was there a little bit more of a stress of like, oh, you know, we got to make sure that this shit's good?
No, it was just, let's fucking go. We were already like, you know, when you like, oh, like pedal to the metal, you put the pedal all the way down. Like, dude, we kicked that pedal right through the fucking van months and months before, you know, Trustkill even came up.
Yeah.
So at that point, and I hope this doesn't sound shitty. It's going to sound how it sounds. But from my point of view, it was just like, yeah, it's about fucking time. Because at that point, I had never been, I know Travis had, well, dude, even Backup Plan on a lesser level, but still, you know, those bands had records on labels. And our EP was on a label, you know, a smaller Long Island label, which to me, like, that's fucking sick. Every band I had done, even if I think it's the best band in the world, it was all on Pride Records with a Z, which is a fake record label that Subterfuge invented in my basement. You know, so not only like, oh, just like a smaller indie label, like especially in 2006, like Trustkill, that was sick as hell as far as like hardcore
Yeah.
goes. You know, and metalcore, you know, maybe not always the like super cool. It wasn't like fucking Bridge 9 or Death Wish, but you know, dude, and then Death Wish put out the vinyl of Sundowning. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like this is what it's supposed to be like. Like people just care about
Yeah,
your band a
totally.
little bit, and they gave us way too much money to record that album. We took way too long to record that album. I think back now, dude, we were in the studio for a fucking month. What do you do for a month in the studio?
Yeah,
Now,
that's
granted, you know,
insane.
some of us, you know, had no idea how to play our instruments at that time. Um, and if there's any guitar players listening, the fucking dreaded G string on a Gibson will like make you bonkers because the intonation just like does not exist. Um,
Okay.
from the beginning of signing with Trustkill to the release of Sundowning, the main thing that I could think of as far as stress was sometimes a little bit of bickering as far as songwriting goes, which is natural when you write songs with other humans.
Mm-hmm.
And then the stress of trying to get that fucking G string to stay in tune, which was so difficult, especially around that time. Like, oh, I play guitar in this band, everything's got to be octave chords and these like weird, like inverted, you know, chord leads. Everything was on the G string, and it was so annoying. Dude, I got so stressed out one day. I was like, you know what? I'm going home and I'm taking a day off, which is like, who gives a shit? You don't need to be there all the time. But to me, you ever see that episode of The Office where Jim like bites his lip over and over again,
Yep.
and he
Yeah.
goes to complain about it, and he does it again. He goes, you know what? I'm going home. So I like took a day. I took one day off from the studio to unwind, and I drove my car to every single store that I could find that had WWE figures, and I just stole hundreds of lot. I probably stole like 50 action figures during that day.
Oh my God.
That was my way of unwinding. Then we came back and we finished the record.
Holy shit! And new collectibles to go along with it. Shit.
You know
Oh
what?
my gosh,
They
that's
owed me
funny.
at that point. I put 2 decades of my life into that company.
Oh my God! So I can say, as far as you know, I wanted to pick your brain because I mentioned with this with Travis, and it came from an interview with you as far as one of the tracks, you know, working titles being "Cowboys from This Is Hell." Did you have any others that were in the back of your mind that popped out that were favorites that you
You know,
had maybe written up on a wall or?
I was trying to think about this today. I used to remember all the working titles for Sundowning, but I don't remember all of them anymore. Prelude was Hard Carl. I won't even explain any of them. It doesn't really matter. Here Come the Rains was Cowboys from This Is Hell.
Okay.
Polygraph Cheaters was Danny Burke with an exclamation point. Oh my God. 82705. The working title was 18 and Flife.
Oh
Which
my God.
Flife is a one word for fat life.
Yeah. Okay.
I remember End of an Era from Misfortunes. The working title was Sing of Sings, like King of Kings, which I know was like the Jesus reference, but to us it was from Triple H. But instead of King of Kings, it was like with C's, so we called it Sing of Sings. I don't remember why, but it made sense at the time.
That's fucking
And
ridiculous.
Last Day's Campaign, the working title was Droopy Draws.
Oh
All
my
these make
God.
sense. They all have like a reason for making sense, but
I'd,
you know,
I'd love
I
to see
can't
some of
really.
these pictures or older lineups like on a board, and maybe the engineer just looking over at this shit like, Jesus, okay. Well, hopefully these don't
I
make the
think it.
album, but
Yeah, I think at that by the time we recorded everything, we always had real names for them, and
okay,
it wasn't
okay,
until
nice.
fuck. I think by the time Weight of the World happened, or I know for sure by the time Black Mass happened, the songs were just Metal 1, Metal 2, and it was like just Metal 1 through Metal 10. Because
Nice, nice.
Pete brought this up a few days ago. Black Mass wasn't initially going to be a This Is Hell record. So I was just fucking around
Oh,
writing
okay.
these new songs. I was like, oh, this is like this hell had gone like pure like fucking crossover, but this was like another step further. I was like, this is just metal. I was like, oh, well, Metal 3, Metal 1. And I was like, I guess I'll just. Although, fuck, I wonder if it. Because I know what. I don't remember what album is deep. Maybe is Demons on. Demons is on Black Mass, right?
Black Mass. Yep.
Okay, because Demons was also called Dirty Rotten France because I wrote it in France. I wrote that in France while we were on tour with Agnostic Front, and I wanted to write something like I wrote that intentionally, short and fast. I was like, oh, it sounds like a DRI song. So instead of Dirty Rotten Imbeciles, it
Nice.
turned into Dirty Rotten France. Dude, I remember the night I wrote that song, I was talking to Joe James, the guitar player at the time from Agnostic Front. And dude, Joe is such a good guitar player. He's such an interesting guitar player. He's such a different guitar player. And he is like cut from that early Roadrunner cloth. So
Mm-hmm.
him joining Agnostic Front around the Warriors album time was like such a perfect fit. So I remember just talking to him one night about like, dude, this song from that album is so sick. This is so sick. Your leads are so good because they're not just metal guy wanking off over hardcore, and it's not hardcore guy trying to play leads over metal, which is what I did all of Weight of the World. I was like, I need to get out of my box. I could only do that so many times. And if I'm pointing it out now, you're like, oh, you just did every lead on Weight of the World. So we, like, without going into theory, he's just explaining, like, dude, you got to push it. You got to do this, that, and the other thing. I was like, you know what? I'm going to fucking do that tonight. So I wrote Demons, and I left a spot for the lead. And I was like, I'm not going to write the same lead that I always write. Which listening to it today, I was like, well, it's almost the same lead. But there's a couple of notes that are out of the same, pentatonic scale. So, even though at the time I was like, dude, I am outside the box. It's like, well, it's instead of a perfect fucking rectangle, it's like, there's like a little jagged edge.
Couple
But I mean,
frets down, yeah.
that's what I needed at the time.
Nice, nice. I love that. Yeah, that was so. I mean, you mentioned in DRI, like I had Kurt on the show before here, and being able to talk to him. I mean, that was one of those things where it's just like, holy fuck, unreal. So and definitely seeing that inspiration into some of the later, crossover stuff. Obviously, Weight of the World back here.
Yeah.
And we'll dig into that too. But yeah, what a sick band. You can't get enough of those guys.
Oh, dude. We've had the pleasure of playing with them a handful of times with Extinction, and at no time was it not where the fuck am I and how did I get here? And then some people, they write off DRI like, yeah, they did this, that, and the other thing, but like, whatever. Not to me, man. They've lost nothing at any point in their career ever. I don't know if my phone is actually charging here. Like, I hope it is, but I don't really know if it is. I really don't want it to, like, stop charging. I'm going to move over a little bit and make sure that I'm still charging here.
There we go.
Because if this goes dead in the middle, I'm going to feel fucking terrible. Already had the vacuum cleaner. All right, that's definitely charging now. Sorry, man. professional.
No. All good, all good. What would you say off of Sundowning? What is your track? What's your favorite song?
If I'm picking a song to play live, it's Prelude, especially like the little variations we've added to it over the years, which is essentially just like little pauses. Because that one breakdown is just so fucking rad. And it's so goddamn stupid and simple. It's like the typical fucking devil music, you know, A sharp into E, you know, make a breakdown out of it. Yeah, throw in some chugs and all shit. But dude, that gets me so hyped when we play that.
Okay.
We're playing we're playing at the Knitting Factory one time. I think we were playing with no redeeming social value. And everybody's having a good time before the show. And this is right after Sundowning came out, I think, or it doesn't fucking matter. But Burke was drinking beforehand. So we're playing and we're just, you know, just having a good time. And we go into that breakdown, which is the So we're doing that and we go into the breakdown twice. So the first time we play it, I'm like looking over at Dan. I was like, dude, we're playing slow. Like, whatever. Then it picks up and then it goes into the breakdown again. We're playing so slow. And I remember going over to Dan Burke and yelling, yo, you're playing it really slow. And he's not wasted, I don't think, but he's definitely, you know, having a good fucking time. And he's playing and he's smiling. And I'm like, yo, we're playing so slow. And he goes, I know. I don't know what's going on. I actually think about that almost every time we play that song still. But
can't control it.
So, I mean, gun to my head, that's my favorite song. But song that we hardly ever played live was no. I don't know if it's No One or Nobody. Nobody Leaves Without Singing the Blues.
Oh yeah.
We played that, you know, sometimes, and we would play it live when we did the full album. But dude, that song is so cool to me. It's so simple, but in my opinion, I mean, this is all my fucking opinion, obviously. That's the song that kind of bridges Sundowning to Misfortunes. Where you know, Sundowning is like a hardcore album. It's a very 2006 hardcore album. You know, it has its melody. You know, it has that kind of you know, I guess that like mid 2000s melodic hardcore. I don't think we went overboard with it. That you listen back and it's kind of, there's some other bands from that era that I loved at the time. I listen back now, I was like, what is this? Like, Jeff used to always make the joke that like, oh, is that one of those bands that gets shot with invisible arrows? Because they always end their set like, oh, I'm so tired. I'm so emotionally drained. I can't take it. I never wanted to get into that territory because that is just some whack bullshit. But I did like getting into the more kind of like almost the like darker. I almost don't even want to use the word emotions because it makes you feel like emo. But like the darker emotional tinge that This Is Hell had, which was so prevalent on Misfortunes. I feel like we bridged that with Sundowning, but nobody leaves without singing the blues. Obviously into Epilogue. I like, you know, I like that mixture. You know, I always thought it was cool to like, even from the very beginning, like, all right, this is Hell. The very first conversation about the band was, we essentially want to do something that sounds like Carry On with Hatebreed breakdowns.
Oh, okay.
All right, cool. I mean, and that's not what wound up happening exactly, but that was the, you know, the initial like mission statement. So almost right away, like pushing those boundaries with, you know, a song like Ad Infinitum, which is as heavy as Hatebreed and as fast as Carry On. Sound like either one of them.
Yeah.
So going into that more like emotive type of dark feelings that those last two songs on Sundowning have, I thought that was really cool. So extremely long drawn out answer. When I'm listening to Sundowning, I'm psyched that those are the last two songs because it's almost like the whole album builds to that, and I'm waiting to hear that.
Nice. I love that. Yeah, that's. I mean, and those are definitely tracks. Too. Like that was my introduction to where I went back and I had discovered the EP and the demo after that with Sundowning. And so, but it's funny too because there's a lot of albums that you can go back to and you can listen to and think of like that earlier 2000s kind of metalcore or hardcore. And I think Sundowning, I think really, and even Misfortunes, honestly, doesn't really fall into a category where it has like a timestamp to it. Maybe if myself knowing that I was there at that time and that's when it was released. But as far as listening to it, I think it pulls off the approach of it not necessarily being of the time and just a record that I can throw on and still listen to, and it's relevant still today too.
That's cool. I mean, I feel like I'm kind of incapable of not associating it specifically with that time. But I mean, that's me personally because I mean, dude, and this is some corny bullshit I'm about to say. I hear what I was feeling at the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Especially with Misfortunes. What's cool about Misfortunes is at the time it was. So first off, people didn't even know that it existed. We were touring on that record for almost a year. I remember we did a tour in December of 2008, and the record came out February 2008. And somebody came to our table who liked the band. They were like singing along to our shit. They're like, "What is this? What do you mean, what is this? This is a new fucking record, man." "Oh, I didn't know you guys did one." Be like, "Oh, fuck." But not only that part, but I mean, critically, it wasn't like lauded or anything. So I think in our heads for a while, we're like, "Oh, Misfortunes is almost like a miss or a write-off to other people, not to me." And then it wasn't until after we like took a long break. First off, which I hope everybody knows, this hell never broke up. We just stopped playing for a while so everybody could go do this, that, and the other thing. So between 2013 and 2016, and 17, 18, whatever. I remember one time on like Facebook or something, we did just you make some posts and you chat with people about your band, which sounds super ego heavy now, but at the time, I mean, I don't know, that's how the fucking social media works. So I think we put up a thing like, "Hey, what is everybody's favorite This Is Hell record?" And a lot of people wrote Misfortunes. I remember being like, "What?" And not like what, like I don't understand why. It's just like, where were all you guys in 2008 and 2009? Because we felt like that record was so maybe underappreciated, but I mean,
underrated for sure.
From my point of view, me saying that is so like self-absorbed. This record that like my band did so underappreciated. Like, who am I to say? Like it's not underappreciated. Fucking some people didn't like it. So it seemed like there was a vocal reaction of people who did not like it, and the people that did like it were not vocal. But to hear now that people do like it is so cool to me because that record was so, and still is, so important to me. And sometimes people ask like, well, there was like things about the record that people automatically like, well, I don't like the record because I feel like the drums sound weird. I don't like the record because I feel like the songs are too long. I don't like the record because even if it's at 10 and it gets to 10, it stays at 10 almost the entire time. I don't know if I agree with any of those things, but like I could understand. But I would not change in retrospect, thinking from Rick in 2021, I would not change one thing about that record. Now, granted, because it's a part of history, the drums didn't sound how we wanted them to sound because we did them in different studios and there was some like weird mix up. Not even really weird. If there's any use of the word weird, it's weird that not everybody was using Pro Tools, so that's neither here nor there. Um, but in 2009, I probably would have been psyched if we could have went back and like fixed some certain things. And I hear like edits I would have made, like, oh, this song sure did not need to be 4.5 minutes. When I was writing it, it did need to be 4.5 minutes. When I listen back to it now, I like hearing that's 4.5 minutes because I know exactly what I was going through. That I couldn't lose that 30-second piece. Objectively, I can go back and be like, you are one shitty songwriter for not cutting out that piece. But I mean, at the time, it made perfect sense, and I have such an appreciation for it. Not to mention, like, I relate that to what we were doing at that time, and it was a different lineup at that time. And we did so many cool tours on that record. Really cool period of time, and like I keep saying, like I hear this, I hear that of my life experiences. The reason why the record's so dark is because my brain was so dark around that time. So I hear that in the music, but what I associate the experiences during that time are so like bright. So I mean, I don't know what that is, but I mean that's fucking cool, right?
Weird juxtaposition.
Take a negative and turn it into a positive. I learned that from Star Trek. Yeah, it's an episode called funny. Speak with a Whisper, I think it's called. Here's something else that's fucking just like nerdy as hell. There's so many hidden, not so hidden wrestling references in This Is Hell, like lyrically, of stuff I've done at least. Since Weight of the World, I have found a way to sneak a Star Trek The Next Generation reference in every single album that I've recorded since.
Damn, no shit. See, I'm not all that familiar with Star Trek, so I guess I didn't necessarily pick up on that, but that rules.
I mean, to some people, I mean, to me it does, but I mean, right. I also know that that's like, so, well, actually.
No, that's great. I love that. And Misfortunes is definitely one of those things I could have said as well, agreeing, that it was something that was underrated, as far as a lot of times I remember hearing about, a lot of times it was always, sundowning and, talking to different friends that, enjoyed the band. I'm like, have you listened to anything else like past that album? Like, there's a lot of good shit going on, dude. You should really check out some of the EPs. The fucking Warbirds EP's got some ripping shit on it, And so, but yeah, as far as with Misfortunes, what would you say was your favorite track to come off that album?
I had an answer for this yesterday, like ready to go.
Okay.
Now, it's so hard to say because there's so many cool things about that record to me. There's some songs that, dude, the first song, what the fuck, Reckless?
Mm-hmm.
There are 2 riffs in that song that didn't get used for the last batch of Subterfuge songs. So being able to incorporate unused Subterfuge stuff into Reckless is so cool. You Are the Antithesis, I think might have been the first song that I wrote for that record. Too long, which is too bad because, dude, when it gets to the breakdown in that breakdown, man, I drive a fucking van for work, and I was listening to that yesterday. I was like, well, I could finish the rest of the day, or I could speed headfirst into whatever gets in my way while this breakdown's on. And I feel like both of those are great options. But then, on the other hand, there's more of that, like, kind of dark, cloudy vibe. A song like Remnants. I listen to Remnants, and it kind of like hurts my heart a little bit. And I used to love getting that feeling from music, like not just my music, but other bands. I hate that feeling now.
Yeah.
But
okay.
But if I'm listening to my own shit and I get that feeling, It's a little different uh, because it's kind of like self-reflective,
Mm-hmm.
and this is more like super, super ego talking. It's cool that I could appreciate 27-year-old me being able to get that vent out and make something of it that
Mm-hmm.
people I don't know have listened to and like maybe even relate to.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
that's
Right.
just like sick as hell. And that was my main thing because we did a lot of press on that record, and the whole thing was like I went into that record very, very dark and very just like fucky. And it was like I could either I'm not gonna pretend I'm not gonna pretend. I'm incapable of pretending. You know, I'm a fucking bad liar. I can't keep my goddamn mouth shut. So I'll just dive into it and I'll get this shit out. But maybe and John wrote almost every lyric for that album.
Oh,
And
right.
he
Okay.
wrote if I if I'm not speaking out of turn, because I know he was also going through his own shit at that time, but he knew, like, he understood, dude, we know each other so well, it's fucking disgusting. He hears what I'm writing, and just because we're close and we talk, he knows what he knows what every song is about just by hearing it, and he will write that down. Um,
Wow.
so I was able to even say, just straight up, like in interviews, instead of like, dude, this tour is gonna be so rad, and like fucking bros on tour, and like this record's sick. Apparently, everybody who does an interview is from 1986 California. I was able to just say like, yo, my brain sucks. I'm in a dark place, and I just this just sounds so corny now, but uh, it was just this is how I feel. I'm putting it out there because it helps me, but I really want other people to know this record sounds like this because of this, and I hope you can relate to it and it helps, or I hope you don't relate to it and can enjoy it just as music because I don't want other people to be in a dark place. But at the same time, that's just the way it is. Especially like fucking hardcore dudes in their 20s. Like, all you do is like you fuck around with your friends and have fun, and then you like feel sorry for yourself. Like that's what it's about, right? uh,
I, you know,
what the initial question was, I have no recollection. But here we are.
your favorite song on Misfortunes, but you had mentioned Reckless
Um,
amongst a
okay.
couple others.
Oof. So you know what? I think I might go with Remnants because I could hear just like fucking, hey, here's my fucking heart and brain all over the place. But there's also some really, really cool, from a guitar player point of view, really cool, like, interesting chord shit in that. Oh, you know what? This goes back to you saying working titles. I'm pretty sure the working title for that song was Failure Knows Your Name because there's so many chords that the band Failure uses. It has like,
Oh,
especially
okay.
once it gets to that breakdown, bang, gang, 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 bam, bang, na, na, na. That is such a like a bouncy version of like a Failure feel on guitar. And the Knows Your Name comes from Hope Conspiracy because if you've
Right.
ever listened to This Is Hell, you know that like we could just be called fucking Hope Conspiracy 2. Um, and I mean, dude, when we would get the, oh my God, you guys sound just like American Nightmare, I would, first off, I love American Nightmare, and I would never take that as offense because in my mind, I was like, let them keep thinking that so they don't realize that I'm just ripping the Hope Conspiracy the entire time. And dude, once HopeCon stopped playing the first time, then I really, really dove into it more because that is in my top 5 of hardcore bands. And to me, especially on End Note and beyond, they are their own like genre of music. Nobody
Yeah.
sounds like that. And when they stopped playing, I was like, I'm gonna go into that more and make it more like um, unbridled. I don't care if people see it, because if HopeCon's not doing it, somebody has to do this type of music, because that type of music was so important. Dude, I have 2 Hope Conspiracy tattoos. They're different, but like 2, you can't just have 1, you have to have 2. That's how much of like a fucking mark I am for that band. So
Nice.
I have unabashed love and
Love.
influence on my sleeve for that band, and I feel like there's so much of HopeCon in Misfortunes. Although HopeCon knew better than to write 4.5-minute hardcore songs.
Yeah, you live and learn. You take it as it goes. But along the ride, you try to be as big of a fan as your own band as you can. Otherwise, what the fuck are you doing?
And, dude, exactly. I always think it's weird when people kind of are like apologetic about their band. I don't know if it's just like fake humbleness or, real humbleness or whatever. I would really, really fucking please, I hope that I've like brought my ego in a bit since my 20s. But, I hope I'm not as much of an egomaniac as I was throughout the 2000s and beyond. But, I don't want to be braggadocious. There's nothing to brag about, but I don't feel a need to be humble about my band. And by that, I mean I will always be just unabashedly proud of my bands, because if I'm not, why the fuck would I spend all that time doing it?
Dude,
It makes no sense to me. I have a job. I have a job that I hate already. Like, why would I want a band to be a job that I'm not like psyched
Stoked.
about?
Yeah.
That's the reward unto itself, because the reward's not fucking money.
Mm-hmm. Sadly,
I have plans for those millions, and it ain't fucking sandwiches.
Nice. Yeah, as far as hearing different things like that, and you mentioned, and maybe, and not necessarily the cockiness of it, but just being a fan of your own thing. It was something I remember having a conversation in my band, and we were kind of playing and writing some newer things, and the one cat had mentioned something to the effect of like, well, if we're not completely stoked on this, what the fuck are we doing? Like, we should be, we should be fans of this shit. That's why we're making it. And it's like, dude, totally. You should not be apologetic for the shit that you're making. Otherwise, it's like, why are you putting it out there?
When sometimes I'll listen to I guess podcasts now, and when there is a guy in a band, especially if he's like a host, when it comes up and like somebody else is talking to the host about their band, they're like, oh yeah, like they'll play it off, or be like, playing it off is fine, and playing it cool. But whenever I hear like, oh, I don't listen to my own band. Now, should your band be at the top of your fucking Spotify year-end playlist? If not, I totally get it. But if it's like, oh, I only hear these songs when I'm at practice or at a show, like, you don't like your stuff that much? Dude, when it comes to writing an album, during the like demo phase, I am so for somebody else, it would be borderline or just over the line embarrassing if they saw the play count on the Extinction A.D. unreleased album demos. It would be like
so there.
Nothing gets me more psyched than just listening to completed demos over and over and over again. And I mean, first off, because it's like you're in that building process, but also the like how much fun this would be on stage. Like, oh, this part would be, and I'm not even talking about like a crowd, just like playing this shit with my friends. And dude, I'm fucking almost 41. The last thing that I should probably be like thinking about while I'm at work driving a van is like, during this part, I could go next to Tom and we could just headbang so hard. But I don't give a shit. That's what the fuck I think about, and I think it rocks. But
that's funny.
But then on top of that, like, just thinking about like, oh, traveling on a completed version of this song, and like this lyric is just, you know, badass, and I can't wait to scream this to like 4 Heshers in, you know, fucking Albuquerque, and to see what their reaction is. And, you know, especially if we're playing and we have no barricade, and I did this all the time with This Is Hell, and like finally I'm getting a chance to do it with Extinction AD a little bit too, is like I'll get psyched and I'll smash somebody in the front, and not like I'm gonna hit them in the face, and I'm not like, oh man, like, you know, I want to fight someone or I'm pissed. Like, I'll just get psyched if I see somebody else is psyched, and it's that actual energy exchange, especially if it's a song that they know and they're just fucking screaming at you. You know, fuck it, man. I'll leave the mic and I'll get in their face and I'll scream. And, you know, you know, if I'm playing, you can't see my arms, but if I'm playing and someone's going to grab me here, it's not get off me. It's like, dude, I'm so psyched, I can't contain myself. Boom. And dude, that's why the fuck we do this. You know, that's why I did it in This Is Hell. And it was like a certain energy with This Is Hell. And it's a different energy with Extinction AD in a lot of ways. Like lyrically, Extinction AD is so much heavier, but band wise and vibe and on stage, we're not like fucking silly. I hate silly, you know, but dude, we have so much goddamn fun on stage. I mean, dude, in almost any lineup of Extinction AD, like you look at those characters, it's like impossible not to have fun with those guys. And dude, I always have this relationship with bass players in every band I've been in, but especially like playing guitar. Like, there's playing guitar with your fucking like best friend bass player next to you. That's like, I almost pity people who haven't had that experience. And I've had that experience over and over and over again. You know, I mean, Jeff, John, Andrew, Pete, Tom, dude, those are like 5 of the greatest people I've ever known in my life. And getting to like, hey, let's like hang out over here and play. And then, you know, in Extinction AD, well, a little bit in This Is Hell too, but in Extinction AD, I also have like a second guitar player. And man, maybe it's just like anybody who's ever been in a band with me has to be kind of like off a little bit. But like the weirdos that I've got to play with and like hang out with and like do dumb shit in life, but especially like on stage with, that shit rocks, man. How can you not listen to your own band? Like, dumb?
That's a point made. You know, I think that was something that I wanted to mention too, because a couple of times that you've kind of mentioned, and even listening, you know, to the band, that's one of those things where, you know, you kind of hear every once in a while in interviews, people are kind of, you know, like real, not to say you have to be overly crazy about it, but laid back and just kind of like, yeah, you know, we're all right. It's like, well, dude, I mean, you gotta step up and be like, fucking like, yeah, I'm absolutely loving this shit. Like, I haven't listened to anything the last like couple of months since we've released our own fucking album. You know? Like,
the thing is, once the album comes out, that's when I usually like, all right, I'm gonna take some time off, because I just overload on the demos. I overload on the fucking demos, and then you're in the studio, you're hearing this shit over and over again, and then you're being critical of mixes, and then critical of the master. It's like this exhausting process that by the time the record comes out, it's got like a week, and then it's like, all right, now I'm going to take some time off. But then, you know, and I find it, well, with all my bands, once I revisit it, it's like, sometimes I go into it like trepidatious, like, is this actually like cool, or is this cool at the time? And more times than not, even if, dude, and I'll say this over and over again, I know to other people, it's not like, oh yeah, this is the fucking best. But I know I can listen to it and be like, I know that I think for me, bro, this is some good shit.
Oh man, that was awesome. I love that shit. Look, we're already at like an hour and a half, and I by no means I don't want to like cut this or anything. Would you be good on doing like a part two of this? We could kind of set up something because I love having the conversation in the backs, and I don't want to speed along some of this shit. But I had asked for an hour, initially, and we're kind of already
dude.
going over, so. I didn't want to.
Sick.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's do that. So that way we don't have to kind of rush through things. And I'd love to have the opportunity, man, to kind of continue on and do like the last couple of albums and maybe even a little bit into Extinction A.D. as well.
Yeah, man. Sick. Cool to me.
Sick. All right, awesome, man. I'll end this here, and then we'll do like a part two here, and then we'll kind of continue on with Weight of the World, which would be sick.
Awesome, dude. Thank you.
All right, man. This has been
All
so
right.
sweet. I cannot wait, and I'll shoot you a message here. And we'll get a part two figured out, my man.